All right. I'd like to call the City Council special meeting for the City of Green Acres, Monday, July 17, 2023, to order. If I can have our city clerk please call the roll.
Mayor Flores,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Noble,
I think he's temporarily out of the room. He should be back in shortly.
Councilmember Tharp,
Present.
and Councilmember Dugo. Here. Councilmember Diaz. Councilmember Bousquet. Mayor, we have a quorum.
All right. We already did the Pledge of Allegiance at a previous meeting, so we're now moving on to agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All right, I have a motion made by Councilmember Diaz, second by Councilmember Tharp. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 4-0. Moving on to comments from the public for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none. Moving on to our regular agenda. Today we have fiscal year budget, 2024 budget. Our first item is fiscal year 2024 preliminary budget review, and that's going to be done by the Director of Finance, Sherry Berger, and our City Manager, Andrew McHugh.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Council. We had a meeting on June the 5th to go over some of the items that we're also going to go over again this evening. Not at the level that we did in detail of the capital improvement projects, but we will be going over the summary pages. I think overall you'll see with this budget as to where we are now. All the numbers may not be in. We might not have all the data just yet, but I think that we're in a good position going into fiscal year 24. So if our Director of Finance tells me she is not concerned, then I am not concerned. So moving forward, so we'll go ahead and start with the first one here. Property Improvement Program, that's the one that we earmark $100,000 for, $75,000 for residential, up to the $25,000 for commercial. There will be some discussions going forward just as part of our economic development plan, just with respect to things related to commercial properties, but that's where we are at this point. I didn't hear, and when I go through the items that we had on the June 5th agenda, I didn't hear any follow-up on those things, so if there are any comments or questions on anything related to those items from the June 5th meeting, be happy to take that, but that's what we're moving forward with, and those are the numbers that we put in the budget based on what we presented on June the 5th. So we have the $100,000 that's for the Property Improvement Program. The next one is the 301 program, that is the new growth. Based on that one, a couple of things I just want to note. Just for your reference, I think when you're looking at the revenue, specifically the interest, you'll see the interest in fiscal year 23 was budgeted at $6,000. We're at $18,500. Prior to this year, we were getting maybe 1% in interest just on our investments. We're over 5% now. So it's better than what it was. And I think that, you know, some of the interest that we're yielding from the investments that, you know, the finance department are doing, we are making some significant interest. So we're happy about that. But I wanted to note that. The residential impact fees, the $302,000 that you see there, we did not have impact fees. And if you recall, when we met back on June the 5th, we didn't have any calculations for impact fees at the time. I think that you're going to see that we're still pretty conservative on the residential impact fees, and then also in the 303 fund, those impact fees as well. So we're pretty conservative on those numbers. Based on the difference from the 6-5 meeting to this meeting, the revenue has gone up by $480,000. So when you're looking at the beginning fund balance in the 301 fund, it was at $7.8 million at June the 5th. Based on just some of the calculations and changes and adding of new numbers, we're at $8 million. The net difference between the revenue and expense takes us down to $7.4 million in the new growth fund. And just as an FYI, the new growth fund, that is a portion of the American Rescue Plan dollars that were moved. When we brought those in, there was a certain portion of them that could be allocated to anything, and they could be also used as revenue replacement, so those dollars were moved into the 301 fund. Questions on that? Moving to the 303 fund. The 303 fund, same thing again. The interest in fiscal year 23 was $900. We are now projecting, we're looking at about $24,000 in interest going into fiscal year 24, so we'll take it. It's not a ton, but it's better than what it was previously, and again, we're yielding over 5% as of right now in interest. So impact fees, again, that was a zero line item on the 5th of June. We have $629,000 in there for residential impact fees in the 303 fund. Again, I think that we're being pretty conservative in those numbers. I would anticipate that they may be a little higher, but those are the numbers that we're looking at right now. So going back down to our fund balance, the beginning fund balance in the 303 fund was at 387, or is it 387? Based on the net change of 184,000, we're looking at an ending fund balance in the 303 fund of 571,554. I think one thing to note with respect to the 303 fund is Parks and Recreation. One of our biggest expenses over the last few years, and we use a lot of surtax dollars for that, was the replacement of our play structures. Fiscal year '24, we will see the last of our play structures put into place. So we don't anticipate that we are going to have a lot of those large dollar amounts with respect to play structures for a long period of time.
Did we do any research on the pickleball?
The pickleball, no, we're still gathering information on the pickleball. We did, I do have some data that I got from our Director of Community and Recreation Services that I have to share with everyone. I know that based on some of the information that she provided, you know what, I think that I actually need to, can you do me a favor? Now that you say that, Mayor, I think I do have some data.
At Community Park, they made some improvements.
Yes, but I think that one of the things that the mayor had asked was, can you do me a favor? Can you plug this in and here? Don't tell George. It's my password. Look for emails from Michelle regarding pickleball. She did. Yeah, there's something, yes, we'll bring that forward. My apologies on that. I did forget to print that information out. We do have some data. I know she was waiting on a little bit of others, but we do have some. Okay, so moving on to the 304 fund. The 304 fund is the fund that historically has been the one where you will see interfund transfers, and we are looking at an interfund transfer of $725,000 going into fiscal year '24. It is not something that is out of the ordinary. Fiscal year '16, we actually had $1 million interfund transfer just based on the amount of projects that we were looking at. But we do have the 725 in there going into fiscal year '24. The largest expense that we have is the roof replacement at the community center. That's $600,000. That roof replacement, it is the original roof from 1999, so it's at a point where we need to replace that roof. So when we're looking at the beginning fund balance of $738,000, the net change is $133 expense over revenue. We're at an ending fund balance of $605,000. The restricted second local option gas tax is at $568,138. So that does leave us at an unrestricted balance of $37,604. So it is something that we're monitoring, that we're working with, and we're working with our Director of Public Works as well. We know that there's a lot of ongoing reconstruction and maintenance that we have to look out in future years, but that's where we are with the 304 fund at this time. Any questions on that? I think one of the questions that did come up as part of the second option, the local gas tax, is have we seen, based on electric vehicles, have we seen the gas tax dollars going down? We have not seen those gas tax dollars going down. It was in 2020 it was 122,000, 2021 128,000, 2022 133,000, 2023 136,000, and we're projecting 143,000 in 2024. So we're not seeing a decline in those dollars at this time. The 305 fund. The 305 fund is the surtax. The surtax is the one that is the 1 penny that was discussed earlier during the council meeting. We're looking and potentially seeing that may sunset in fiscal year '24. When you look at the infrastructure surtax, the last line within the revenue section, the way that the city was supposed to receive dollars, it was $2.3 million a year or $23 million, whichever came first. As you can see there, based on the actual dollars and what we're projecting, the dollars are much higher than $2.3 million, and that's just based on additional revenues coming in and the state sending those dollars down to the municipalities and the county and the school districts. So we anticipate that probably sometime in fiscal year '24, we will see that sunset. I did have conversations with a couple of the county commissioners and also some of the staff. It doesn't look like they're looking to extend that or request to extend it at this point. I know the school district is potentially looking at something for themselves. They actually get a half of that penny, which equated to over $1 billion for the school district. So they are looking at moving forward potentially with something, but the county, I think, is potentially looking to maybe divert and go in a different direction with that. We haven't heard anything more on that. Based on our expenditures here, the $2.3 million for vehicle replacement, that is for fire rescue. We are currently looking at leasing options. This is the number that we have in here for purchase, but we are currently looking at the leasing options for that. So when you look at the beginning fund balance of $5.6 million, the net change of 1.1 in expense over revenue, we are at an ending fund balance of 4.4. Any questions on that one? 306 fund. 306 fund are the American Rescue Plan dollars, and the way that the 306 fund works, this is not all the dollars that represent the American Rescue Plan dollars. There are dollars that the city currently has invested in trying to make some money off of those investments. It's about $6 million. We don't show the revenue until we have the projects to show as an expense, just with that 306 fund and those American Rescue Plan dollars. So the numbers that are shown are based on the budgeted amounts. But again, we do have some funds up to $6 million right now that we do have invested separately to try and yield some interest on those. So when you're looking at the total revenues, $7.2 million for fiscal year '24, and then the expenditure of 8.8, we have a beginning fund balance of 9.1, net change of 1.4, and then an ending fund balance of 7.7. Any question? No? Okay. The next slide is really just showing the summary of all the capital improvement program funds. So that just shows the summary if there's no questions on that. The next item was one of the bigger items we discussed, proposed positions for fiscal year '24. I know it's a lot of positions. I think that if all of you know how we do business here at the city, I think we do more with less always, but I think that we're getting to a point where we are spread too thin in some areas, and we're either not getting everything done that we should be getting done as effectively as we can be getting done, and things are falling through the cracks, or we're just missing things and really not taking care of some of the things that we need to. So based on that, these are the positions. I have not heard. I did meet with a couple of you, and we talked in detail about some of these positions. But just as an overview, just on a couple of them, the accounts payable technician, that part-timer, that's minimal dollars, but that's looking to potentially partner with John I. on their finance academy and getting a representative from their finance academy, one of their students, to be able to be in that position. Information technology, looking at just EnerGov, the requirements of cybersecurity. EnerGov was one of the items that's in the 303 fund, and I will tell you that some municipalities and the city of Green Acres is not looking to do it, but the municipalities that do have a customized plan for EnerGov do have a specific IT employee that only manages EnerGov. It is a program that will really make us more efficient across the board within our building department and our building, zoning, planning, code, information and data will feed into finance as well. So we're moving forward with that, but we're not looking for just an EnerGov specific employee, but just based on the needs of the department, we're seeing the need for those two positions as well. The firefighter paramedic positions, those positions are moving us towards getting the 3 on the truck. So that's why those positions are there. And then I think just based on community and recreation services, our events coordinator position is also serving as the, I want to say, community services coordinator, overseeing our senior programming and other programming. Again, it's not really an efficient use of that employee's time, and really going out and looking for those sponsorship dollars and the generating of those partnerships. It's just the amount of work has just increased significantly. Custodian, we have 14 parks, and I believe we have 3 custodians for the 14 parks, and then we have our facilities as well. Our fire stations run 24/7. So the part-time position is really just offsetting some of that, the time there. And then our parks attendant, again, I believe we have 2 people that are parks attendants, so this is really just kind of backfilling at times when we need some of that backfill within those areas. Are there any questions on the proposed positions for 2024? Currently, when we get to the later slides, these positions are reflected in the budget that you will see in the later slides. They are included in those numbers. Are there any questions on these? No? Okay. The next one is just the one that we include every year. We have a 3% increase from the Palm Beach, from the Sheriff's Office. So we're looking at for fiscal year '24, $11,057,893 for law enforcement services. Any questions on that one? No? Okay, the next slide is the 2023, is the projections. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. The next slide is the projections for 2023. When we met back on June the 5th, that this information was was as of April 2023. The lines that really to focus on are the total revenues and the total expenditures. That $14 million is an American Rescue Plan transfer out, so it's not something that I want anyone to be concerned about. There's not a $9 million deficit in the forecast. That's really related to the American Rescue Plan dollars. But when you're looking at the total revenues, our budget is $36,537,289 for the amended budget. We're looking at year-to-date actuals of $32 million. We're forecasting $39,429,199, so a net of $2.8 million to the good in the revenue. It was 2.3 actually on June the 5th when it was presented back on June the 5th. So it's increased for about $500,000. So we're trending in a good direction there. As far as total expenditures, $35 million was the amended budget for expenditures. We are currently at $21 million year-to-date actuals. We're anticipating forecasting $34 million. So again, we're at $1,096,000 to the good. On expenditures, on June the 5th, we were at $1,019,000, so a little bit more there as well. So based on our forecast, we're looking to end fiscal year '23 at a good place.
Could you explain to me the ad valorem taxes, why it's down?
We only collect, 96%. We account for a 96% collection. There are some people that don't pay their taxes. So I think that's based on 96% collection rate.
And that's based on the values not going up?
No, this is based on our current fiscal year. The ad valorem, $15,367,846 is based on the 6.3 mils. So that's what the current ad valorem is for fiscal year '23.
I'm talking about the forecast. The forecast, is that projecting the values of home going up, or?
No. The forecast is just how we end this current fiscal year. That's just how we're ending this current fiscal year. No, that's okay. So that's what we're looking, that $15.3 million is what we're anticipating we'll collect in ad valorem taxes this year. Right, the $41 million, we never account for a full 100% because there are some that don't pay
The
them.
forecast is not for next year, I apologize.
No. The forecast is just for this current fiscal year. So correct. So we're looking to end in revenues, $2.8 million additional in revenues, and then we're also looking to be to the good by $1 million in expenses, ending this current fiscal year.
So is that 41 normal?
The 41,000?
The loss that, is it higher is it normally this high that people don't pay taxes? Because we projected at 96, but yet it's still not quite where we had projected. So are we now at 95?
No, I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question, you said you guys projected, you do your forecast based on 96% people pay taxes, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But it's higher because of this, a loss of 41,000. So is that normal that it's more than 96% or less than 96?
Well, we budget 96%. That amended budget, the 15.367, is the 96% of what we.
Right, but I mean, there's a shortfall, a little bit
Right.
more. So my
So-
question is it a trend? Is it something that's happening in,
No, by this time, everybody should have paid their taxes already.
right,
You know, we might get a couple trickle in, but so we're forecasting just 15.3 right now.
right.
So 41 isn't too bad,
It's not bad. Okay.
No.
So it's normal.
yeah.
Any question on the projections? Yes.
That 41, that negative 41 is as of right now.
Correct.
That means it will still diminish as we get closer to the
It
end of the
could,
fiscal year.
correct, it
Okay.
could. And these,
Could.
and these numbers could still be adjusted based on, again, this is as of May 2023. So this is as of May, and this is the forecast, and I will tell you that while it's as of May, it is forecasting through the end of the fiscal year, though. So we're looking at positions, we're looking at operating expenses, we're looking at all the things, we're looking at fees, we're looking at all of those things and forecasting through the end of the fiscal year. So it is forecasting through the end of September.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide. The next slide is looking at fiscal year '24. So you'll see excess revenue or excess expenditures over revenue of $648,000 for fiscal year '24. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are up in the revenue column or specifically the ad valorem taxes. Currently, the 15.326501, that is current fiscal year '23. Fiscal year '24, we saw an increase in property values of 13.51%. That reflects in the 17,469,639. Additionally, the intergovernmental, what we're seeing right now is the state number of $6.8 million. Again, we may not have all the numbers in at this point, so this is what we're showing as of today. So some of these numbers may change going into before, we can talk again in August or when we go into September. But as of right now, these are the numbers that we're looking at today. I think some of the things to take into consideration when we're looking at personnel services, a couple of things that we're looking to do going into for fiscal year '24. We are taking our benefits out to bid just based on our loss ratios. We've seen a decline in our loss ratios to the benefit of the city of Green Acres, where our broker has said that it's time for us to go out to bid on benefits providers. So we are going to do that. In addition to that, we're looking at also implementing a clinic for our employees as well, based on the savings that we've realized and going out to bid. They're very confident that we will be able to do this, and that will only in turn reduce our loss ratio because we will not see those claims coming through on the benefit side. So it's only a positive for the city to look at that. Solid waste collection, you'll see 5.9% in there. 3.5% is the standard based on the agreement. They do have the ability to ask for a higher percentage just based on their costs. I will tell you that for fiscal year '23, we negotiated that increase based on performance. And for fiscal year '23, they did not receive any additional dollars based on their performance. So we are willing to negotiate and say that, those increases, anything above the 3.5%, it's based on performance. It's not something that's just a given. So again, fiscal year '23, they did not realize any of those dollars at this point, just based on the lack of performance during the fiscal year. So we're not very hopeful that they will probably, it's very possible that it'll be the same going into fiscal year '24 as well. We are taking that also back out to bid. We are not going to be exercising the option year, so we are going to be moving forward with rebidding the solid waste as well. When we're looking at that 648, yes.
So if we go out to, what does that option year look like, cost-wise?
It's 5 more years. I think it's at the same.
At the same rate?
At the same, I believe it's at the same rate, yes.
There are less players. You think that the number would be less, equal, or a lot higher? Because last time when we got the numbers, they were pretty high.
Well, the numbers, they came in very low. I mean, the number that came in
Advanced
from
came low.
Advanced came in low.
Right.
Right, the numbers were higher, but I think that based on performance, I think that we felt that it's something that we should go back out and take a look at it again.
So shouldn't that option be exercised by this council?
We were going to make a recommendation
Okay.
to the council.
I just wondering, because I thought it sounded like you were making a blanket decision.
No.
Okay. I guess I would like to see that option before we decide to decline.
Okay. Any other questions on the fiscal year '24 proposed? All right, looking at the general fund, the millage of 6.3, when we're looking at the 5-year projection, looking at fiscal year '24, again, we have the 648,579. Looking in out years, you do see that expenses do exceed revenues in the out years, and some of the things that we're looking at, I think that based on the next couple of years, I think that we're going to see positive increases in values over the next couple of years, just based on the number of new projects that we have coming into the city. Over the next couple of years, we have several hundred houses coming in, single-family, townhome, the possibility of an apartment complex that there has been some discussion about as well, which would be about 400 units as well. So those are some things that we're looking at in the out years, and just having conversations with our property appraiser and her staff, those are going to significantly show increases in our property values as a result. So I think that there's some positive things there. But we do know in addition to that, and I think one of the things that we're looking at from an economic development perspective is really looking at some opportunities for redevelopment. There's a need for redevelopment in the city. Some of our plazas, different things, different areas of the city that we're going to be focusing on. So that's really where we are at this point. We know that we're 99% built out. We know that really opportunities for growth are going to either be through annexations or redevelopment. So those are the things that we're going to need to focus on going forward. Any questions on the general fund 5-year projection? No? Okay, next slide. This is the fund balance. This was Mr. Bennett talked a little bit about the fund balance earlier. When you're looking at the fund balance, we have a beginning fund balance going into fiscal year '24 of $20.9 million. The net change in the reserve of $648,000, should that be the number that we come in with in September? We're still, again, working through the numbers, but the projected ending balance is $20.2 million. And then the fund balance breakdown, and that's really based on assigned or unassigned. So the $2 million is the emergency reserve that he talked about. We do have $2 million reserves set aside, the non-spendable of $226,411, and then the compensated absences of $394,414. Those are all assigned, and then we have an unassigned of $17 million. That takes our fund balance to the $20.294,989, which is 43.6% of expenditures. Council Policy 18 requires that our fund balance needs to be at least 25% of expenditures. So we are in really good shape at this point right now. Going out through fiscal year '28 is when we're looking at potentially where we're still above the 25%, but it's getting a little closer to the 25%. So any questions on that? The next is the millage comparison. We did put this in here just as a reference so that you can see where we would be. If there was a rollback, that would take the excess expenditures over the revenue of $2.5 million. That would leave the unassigned reserved at 39%. The 6.25 millage, and again, these were just some things, so if there was an interest from the council to kind of see what the impact would be, the 6.25 millage, that takes it to 787,227, and an unassigned reserve of 43.51, and then 6.27 is the 731,767 of 43.64, and then currently where we are, the 6.3 millage proposed of 648,579 and a 43.85% of revenue, or revenue as a percent of expenditures. Reserve is a percent of expenditures. Any questions on that? The next slide just shows the operating millage rates, and again, fiscal year '24, $2.8 billion in taxable value for the city, property tax revenue of $17.469,639, and then the rollback rate. If you see the rollback rate, where we would end up at the rollback rate. So that's where we are with the summary of the operating millage rates of that effect. Questions on that? And then the next slide really is just the graph showing that at this point right now, the council does have to set the millage rate. Understanding as a reminder that once the millage rate is set, you cannot go above it. You can go below it prior to adoption of the budget. So, at this point right now, the numbers that we have in the budget are based on the 6.3 millage rate. So a couple things we'll go back to. I know that, and again, I apologize, a couple of things that, one of the things that was brought up at the last budget meeting, there was some discussion regarding the live streaming of the meetings. We did look into that, and based on the numbers that we're seeing right now, and it's not something that's currently in the budget, based on the numbers that we're seeing right now, we're seeing approximately 10,000. There is a potential that we could do it in-house, depending on the number that we're waiting for. It's a couple days out before we get that quote, but that will include 2 cameras, 10 presets, and then it's panning in and out. So looking for some direction from the council on if they want to move forward with live streaming. We are not looking at the state of the art at this point because we know that there are some things that we're going to need to do with respect to this building, just based on the growth of the city and some things that we're going to need to do going forward. So, but this is something that will allow for the live streaming of the meetings if it's something that the council is interested in doing. So I was looking for some direction on that.
Excellent. I think I was the one that brought up that idea. I guess as I was talking to some of my colleagues at other cities, they couldn't believe that we're still on audio. And we were just comparing some notes, and I thought that, when our folks are going on YouTube to listen, they should be able to see, because I think right now our audio is being put on YouTube, correct? And so I got some feedback also from a few residents when they were looking for what's happening. So I was the one that brought it up. I hope that you guys, for the sake of transparency, that we can make the small investment of $10,000 into this technology. Nothing to do with me, but everything to do with transparency and our residents. So, Deputy Mayor Noble.
I am definitely not in favor of what you're proposing, so I think we should realize we have to in great detail and get the real opinions of other members of the council.
Anyone else? All right.
I'm on board for the 10,000.
So I'm going to go get consensus. I'll start to my right. Councilmember Tharp?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noble, no. Councilmember Dugo?
I think I'd consider this at a later date, so, no.
Councilmember Diaz?
Just a clarifying question, is there an operational cost to do it? Like, is there like an additional fee we'd have to pay on top of the 10,000, like with
Think so, no.
YouTube or anybody?
I don't
Okay.
think so, no.
Yes.
And Councilmember Busquet?
I guess we have to go forward. I don't love it, but I think that,
So is that a
I'll
yes?
say yes, yeah.
Okay. So I think we have consensus.
The ladies will have to wear makeup.
So will we, Mr. Noble, so will we.
Councilmember Dugo?
The screen's back up here. where
Hold
we
on,
can't
let
see our
Councilmember
faces.
Dugo wants to,
Just a question, Andrea. Okay, we have allotted 10,000 for it, but do we know if it can be done in-house? Because we have a lot of things that we need to do in this building, so I don't want to spend 10,000 and say, oh, guess what?
Yes, we can do it in-house. It might take a little longer with the staff that we have in-house to be able to do it, but we can do it in-house. And I think that what we're looking for is to see what that dollar amount comes back at. 10,000, I think, is the higher side of it. I don't know that it's going to be that, but just to be able to have something in there, to make sure that we have something in there, I don't know that that's going to be the dollar amount. But
Okay,
if need be, we can do it in-house.
okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I just want to, all right. Okay, so based on the pickleball, again,
1 second, I think
Yes.
Councilmember Tharp has a question.
Yes.
Just a quick reminder, I'm a huge fan of the property improvement program. I don't think we've seen results in a while.
what we're
so-
going to do is when every year, the council, we bring that before the council to move forward with the program again. We don't just move forward with it. So we do bring it back before the council for their consideration and direction in case anything has changed as far as the rules and regulations of it. So we will bring back the before and after so that you can see those things as well.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? No? Okay, pickleball. Our Director of Community and Recreation Services did reach out to counterparts, and I will forward you this information because I think it'll be easier for you to digest it if I forward the information to you as well. I think it all depends on the location. Interestingly, there are communities that, for example, Boynton Beach has 6 outdoor courts. It's a per-person punch pass, and the residence fee is from $3 to $50. Non-resident fee is the same. The pass is valid for 30 visits. Boca has 26 outdoor courts. Their resident fee is $6. Non-resident fee is $12. Delray, they only have 1 outdoor court, 1 indoor court, and they have daily, monthly passes. The daily passes are $4, monthly passes are $25 for residents, and then $5 and $30 for non-residents. Jupiter has 3 lined indoor courts. They have a daily open play. It's free, first come, first serve for residents. The non-resident fee is $3. Lake Worth has 6 lighted outdoor courts. They are free as well. There's no charge for residents or non-residents. Lantana has 4 outdoor courts, no charge for residents or non-residents. Gardens has 10 outdoor courts that are lighted. You have to call to reserve them. The resident fee is $8. The non-resident fee is $10. They also do private lessons as well. Palm Springs has 1 outdoor court, which is free to both residents and non. Royal Palm has 2 indoor courts, which it's a one-time fee per year, and the resident fee is $20, and the non-resident fee is $25. But interestingly, with Royal Palm Beach, you have to bring your own net for their courts. Yes. So West Palm Beach has 2 outdoor courts. They are free on a first-come, first-served basis. Palm Beach County Parks and Recreation has 38 courts, 20 of which are lighted, and they are also free for residents and non-residents. And then Wellington, I know that was one that specifically came up based on the information that she received. They have 8 outdoor courts, and they are free on a first-come, first-served basis. You have to bring your own paddles and balls. They don't provide anything.
Right, so I brought this up because I heard a lot of feedback from some of the players. Our courts at Freedom Park are busting at the seams, and I've never played, but it seems like it's a hot commodity. A lot of people are into the pickleball game, and it's breathing like a community. So one of the asks that was brought up when I visited the court was, can we do a roof? Obviously, here in the summer, right now it's raining. It could get hot. So we don't have any roofs on anything on our outside courts or parks. So I brought up the idea, how much would a roof cost? And could we have it be a revenue generating so it pays for itself? Which I think is why you read off some of the punch cards and some of that stuff. So how much would a roof be to, let's say, what we currently have, to roof that? And if people were going to pay, how much would it cost to have a staff member? I guess that's, and make it more of an attraction. So, and I use the example of the tennis center that I go to in Wellington, where every time I play for 2 hours, it costs me anywhere from $15 to $35 to use the court. So I guess that was my question, is how do we make this feasible so that not one community is getting better treatment? I'm not saying to take away the free. I'm saying if we're going to enhance the service and provide a roof, how do we offset the cost? So I think that's where my ideas were based on the feedback that I heard from some of the players. I thought some of them were going to come today, but I don't see anyone here. But
When I spoke to purchasing, and purchasing did some research, looking at the roofs and just ensuring that it's a reinforced roof, that it's a structure that, can withstand the winds, we're looking at probably $65,000 to $100,000. So just for the roof within itself, that would probably be about the estimate of what we're looking at to ensure that it's not something like where with our play structures, we can take down those covers, that this is something that we would create as a permanent structure over top of it. So we're looking between $65,000 and $100,000 in that area based
How many
on,
courts does it cover?
well, right now, we have, I think, the
If you
four,
put the roof, how many courts will the roof?
it was based on the current structure, our current structure, and I want to say we have 4 courts?
3 or 4?
Yeah.
Okay, then I apologize. I was basing that on the information that I misread Monica's information. Okay, okay, so it's a pretty significant number to do that. I think that based on a fee structure, we can do something where if we're looking at a fee structure that in time, I believe, just based on the demand, we can recoup some dollars for that. I know that there is a high demand. We would like to be able to do additional courts in different locations. I think just for us, the ability to have available land is an issue. We did, from a Freedom Park perspective, while that park is in the city, we don't own that park. It's technically not ours. It is a Palm Beach County park. Our Director of Public Works did request that we do some clearing of certain areas that really are non-use at this point, and the county did not agree to that. So unfortunately, we're constrained in that because one of the challenges that we have with Freedom Park is the lack of parking. There's not a lot of parking in Freedom Park for all of the amenities that are in that park, and we wanted to be able to clear some space so that we could add additional parking spaces, and the county said no to that. So I think that we're a little constrained with that, but, I mean, we can come up with something where there is, based on a fee structure, long-term, there could be a free structure that could recoup it, and again, my apologies on with respect to the roof, I was looking at a different number that was provided by purchasing, so that's where we are.
Deputy Mayor Noble.
2 questions.
Yes.
There's been concern that there's not enough covered area for sitting while you're waiting to play in Freedom Park. Apparently it gets very, so it was suggested that we need also a covered sitting area. The other question I have is, what numbers did Carlos give you for the roof?
600,000
For covering those 4
for covering the 4 courts, yes.
And that would be a fixed structure?
Correct.
Withstand the wind, yeah.
Right.
It's beams, I'm assuming,
Yes.
and then some roof, okay.
Rather than something like we have over the play structures, where if you look at our play structures, we do have shade structures over them. In the event of a hurricane or if one is coming, they can be removed and taken down and then put back. And those are 100,000, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you do that over the pickleball courts?
The shade structure, I mean, that's something that we can look at. We can look at the shade structure. It's not going to be, I mean, it is, for all intents and purposes, it's a permanent structure, but it's not one that will be up, in the event of a weather event. That's something that, we would need to take down. It doesn't stay up in the event of a weather event. So that could be something, We also looked at it, years ago, putting that kind of structure over the basketball courts as well. And it wasn't just a shade structure. It was more like what the mayor was referring to, that it was a metal, hard structure covering the basketball courts as well.
If it was by me, I'd pick a basketball court, but that's not what's on demand. Right now, what's on demand is pickleball.
It is.
And that's what if you go to those courts on a Monday through Friday at 6 p.m., there is a
wait for
line
them. There's a
waiting
wait
for
for
people
them.
to get on the court. So
It's the #1 sport growing right now worldwide. I would like to see, and I know we don't only have land, I would like to see more pickleball courts. I certainly don't want to have a fee-based charge. I don't want to charge people for using our courts. Our parks are open for people to enjoy.
Well, I think, how about non-residents?
Who's going to identify if they're a resident at the pickleball court? Because I thought of that, but who's going to ID them?
So, for
They get
example,
passes.
when I go to the tennis court in Wellington, they verify my ID. So, and I pay according. I'm not a Wellington resident, so I pay a little surcharge. But Wellington also offers tennis courts for free. It's not that they don't, it's just that those are maintained by a pro. There's facilities where you can change. There's restrooms that are cleaner. It would, if it was something that it would be an investment. So, sounds like it's 600,000. It's not just money that you find laying around, but we may be able to recoup that money over time. That's what I'm saying. Councilmember Diaz.
What does it
How
cost
long
in
is pick-
personnel to maintain that and to,
Right,
and to
once
get the
again,
money and everything else,
I-
collect the money?
I think based on the research that was done, we're not quite there yet to know those numbers.
You'd have to run a-
So, Councilmember Diaz.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. My first kind of thought is it busting at the seams because it's free? Are people coming from outside? I mean, if whatever we're going to do, and it's hard because if you do something where a resident is free, but then a non-resident isn't, now you're requiring a staff person to sit there, which is an additional burden on our budget. So, I mean, I think there's a lot to explore. I don't,
For just 8 hours, you need people there. you know.
correct,
Oh, yeah.
not disagreeing.
Well, can I-
And then as far as the roof, I think I mean, you have to look at whether or not those shade-style roofs would work for pickleball. I don't know if you've seen the game or how it can go, but those roofs might get tattered fairly quickly unless they're substantially higher. Then you're looking at footers and to do the posts. So it's a little bit more of a complex discussion, I believe, at this point.
Right, so I think what I wanted was for us to do more research and if it's an investment that we're gonna make, it doesn't have to be made this budget year, perhaps we can explore what that looks like if we were going to do it. I do know that the community here travels to an old Broward College building that was converted. It was an auditorium, it was converted into, I believe, 6 courts down there, and they pay like over $50 an hour to use those courts. So there is a demand. I'm not saying that there isn't. And could it be a premium because it's free? During the weekdays, I bet it is. But I bet you when it rains, it'll also be, a covered facility will also be used at a premium. So I would like to, I guess what I would like to do is ask staff to go back and sort of come up with a business model and one that's simply free. And then we can make a decision based on that. Would you guys be open to that? Councilmember Tharp.
One thing, and I've never played pickleball, so I don't know the height required, but if there's vacant buildings, it seems like, whether it's in a shopping center or something that we could get and convert, that will have a future use, because like all things sports, pickleball will last, whether it's a decade or 2 decades, but if we invest in a building, then we at least have an asset at the end of the day. But I would definitely like to see something going forward.
I have just the building in mind. You know which one I'm talking about.
Deputy Mayor Noble.
No, I have nothing to say.
No, would you like to, would it be okay with you that staff researches this further?
Yes, and they can steal some model from some other organizations that's charging.
Councilmember Dugo.
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz.
Yes.
Councilmember Busquet.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And if I can, Mayor, just to Deputy Mayor Noble's point regarding the shade and the seating area, that is something that the concrete needs to be put down. There's going to be some benches. I don't know that that's done yet, correct? It's not? Okay, it's about a month out, but we are going to be putting concrete pads at the pickleball courts with benches and shade structures.
Stephen Young called me today. and
Yes,
Tell me apparently that there's now 2 exit or entrances now. They've made some changes there. I haven't seen it.
Okay,
But I know, since he is a professional pickleball player and teacher, I know he's been suggesting certain changes and probably has spoken to Carlos. So I
yes, he has called in and we've spoken as well. But yeah, we're moving forward with those seating areas and also shaded seating areas as well as people wait.
Mayor,
Councilmember Busquet.
this is a different subject, but the same. We were talking about shade structures on the bank shot courts, where are we with that? I mean,
We're looking at it. I think the one thing that's going to be difficult as well is how high we go with it, because you throw those balls up, that's going to potentially be an issue.
So even if there was a sitting area where they can go to cool down when they're out there playing in the sun, that would be acceptable as well.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our city manager before discussing the tentative millage? Anything else, city manager, Mickey, before we discuss this?
No, I don't have anything else. We talked about the live streaming, and I think we had some discussion. I think those were the two follow-up items that I don't have anything else, no, Mayor.
Perfect. All right, so we have to set a tentative rate. I think our, the way we've usually operated is we usually keep it at the current until, I believe the final decision has to be made at the next workshop, correct?
No, the final decision, it has to be made during the budget meetings in September.
In September.
In September, correct.
I'd like to make a motion to keep the millage rate 6.30.
6.3?
I'm sorry, yes,
6.3, right? Okay.
6.30.
I second the motion.
And it's to set the tentative millage, correct?
That's correct.
Is that how it
It's to
should
set
be
the-
phrased?
That's correct. It should be the tentative millage at 6.3.
Thank you.
That's for our own purposes, right? This is, we're
Right.
not submitting anything.
We do have to submit a tentative millage rate to the property appraiser's office. We always have to submit something before the end of July every year. So this is sending the tentative. It doesn't mean that the city can't go below that number, but the city cannot go above it. Correct. The city can't go above it.
So at this point, I have a motion made by Councilmember Dugo to set the tentative millage rate at 6.3. I have a second by Deputy Mayor Noble. Are there any other comments or questions?
Um,
Councilmember Busquet?
I agree with 6.3, but I would love to see us go to rollback.
To the rollback, to
not
the
today.
5 point something?
Well, that's up for discussion.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make us.
I would like to see us get to 6.2. I think that's a ideal world, but we'll get to that hurdle when we speak.
Any comment?
Deputy Mayor Noble.
I think it was just 6 months ago, my condo raised our maintenance, and I had an assessment they came up with. I'm being advised, I got a letter today that says we're having a meeting this month to discuss raising the maintenance again, and there's another assessment they're looking forward to. So what's happening is we're being hit with insurance costs, repairs and whatnot, and so I'm sure everyone in a condo, I mean, everyone's left, but the condo livers, condo people live in living condos are not here to agree with me, but we have to be careful about going higher. So if we can keep it low, I think we'd be doing our constituents a favor.
All right, I have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Moving on to comments from the public on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. State your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, city manager's report. Is there anything else?
I think the only thing, just based on your comment, Mayor, going to the 6.2, we are creating the budget based on 6.3. Should we be bringing back something that shows other numbers for the council to consider for an overall budget? Because we need some direction on that if that's what we're looking to do.
So you have some proposed here.
Correct. We have the 6.25, 27, I think.
Could we go down to 6.2 to see what that looks like?
We're going to have to.
So add another line, I guess.
We can do that.
Anyone else wanted to see anything else? And Councilmember Busquet, you meant the rollback, meaning the first column, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So I just have a comment. If I see the 6.2 millage comparison, I would like to see all the budget line items as to what we have to cut back on.
When you say what we have to cut back on, so you're saying
Well, we're
that
gonna have to
when
cut
we're looking,
expenses.
okay, so where we're looking, if, for example, the 6.25 millage proposed shows a deficit of the 787,000, at this point right now, the recommendation is based on our fund balance, that would be coming from the fund balance, that it wasn't showing that there was going to be a cut in any of the items, the line items within the budget. So if we're looking at 6.2, you'd also like to see, instead of that difference coming out of the fund balance, you would like us to reduce expenses to show a net zero.
Right. I believe that sooner or later, you can't just keep depleting the fund balance.
Okay, we can, that's
Fine.
the direction to go in, okay?
Adjournment.
I'm letting her finish.
I'm good.
Okay,
This
that's
is
it.
a city manager's report, so she's still
Yep.
working.
I want to make sure that I understand exactly what we're looking for. Okay, all righty. That's where we are.
That's it.
We're good, yep.
All right, are there any other reports from the mayor or city council? All right, seeing none, meeting's adjourned.